Lazy housekeeper, get dinner ready already. Instead of showing concern for me as I collapsed in dizziness, my husband, Jason, pushed me away with annoyance and glared at me with irritation. Seeing his behavior drained the color from my face, and as I slumped to the floor, he just ignored me and started watching TV. Unbelievable. As I stood there, stunned by the scene, suddenly someone appeared from behind and said to him, "Is that all you've got to say?" Immediately, Jason turned around to see the source of the voice and his face went pale with shock. My name is Marilyn Watson. I'm a 34-year-old homemaker, and I've been married to Jason, who's 5 years my senior, for almost 2 years now. For these 2 years, my life has been hellish. Jason was like, "What's this terrible food? Didn't you learn to cook from my mother?" For the first year of our marriage, I lived with Jason's parents. It was what they'd call training, I guess. Jason was a total mama's boy, and my mother-in-law, in today's words, was a real helicopter parent. She was very strict about manners, and wouldn't tolerate any backtalk from me. She was a prime example of a toxic person. A woman should be like this, and respecting your husband is a given. A wife who doesn't prioritize her husband is just useless. Growing up in such an environment, Jason once muttered shortly after our wedding that he was looking for a wife like his mother. Unaware of this, I fell for his words, and after getting married, I was subjected to a hellish life. "Marilyn, honey, I really want you to support Jason. I'm gonna be tough on you, even if it means being hard-hearted. It's all to ensure that you both have a harmonious family. Please bear with me." True to her words, from the day we moved in together, I was treated like a servant. Doing chores was just the tip of the iceberg, constantly having to read their moods was a given. I had to wake up before everyone else and wasn't allowed to rest until everyone had left for work. I'd start eating after everyone else and had to finish before everyone. If I didn't, I'd get a 1-hour lecture. If the food tasted even slightly off, both my mother-in-law and Jason would take it out on me. Day by day, they successfully molded me into a submissive wife who wouldn't dare oppose her husband. Now I'm afraid to express my opinion to him, and if his mood seems off when he comes home, I'd nervously share meals with him, always on edge. Looking back, I really question how any of this was supposed to promote a harmonious household. But at that time, I was so overwhelmed that I didn't even have the energy to question it. You really don't have a handle on housework, do you? What did your mother teach you? I feel like it'd be easier to train a stray cat than to teach you. About a week after I moved in with my in-laws, the true nature of my once kind mother-in-law began to show. After that comment, I was subjected to daily sarcastic remarks. It's a given to mop the hallways, and there's no room for even a speck of dust. You should prepare the broth and serve homemade meals to my husband. No matter how busy you are, you can't cut corners. To top it all off, I was even told to wash clothes by hand. Even though there was a perfectly good washing machine right in front of me, I wasn't allowed to use it. Being a homemaker and having all this free time, and yet you want to go for convenience? A true wife works her fingers to the bone. I've never seen a wife who's so set on taking the easy way out. While she shouted these complaints, my mother-in-law had no qualms about using the washing machine herself. The environment was unbearably harsh. I did confide in Jason, but he wasn't supportive. "How could you insult my mother? What kind of upbringing results in such a person? My family is perfect. Maybe it's your fault, and that's why she's being strict?" Jason never acknowledged any wrong on his mother's part. He frequently used the term train as if I was no different from a dog or a cat. He believed his mother was right, there was no doubting what she said. It was as if he was a true believer. It seemed as if he was brainwashed, not willing to listen to my side, always blaming me. My mother-in-law found out about this, and from the next day, I was only allowed to go shopping on foot. No matter how far I needed to go, she even started saying that I couldn't use public transportation. She was like, "You should live in a traditional style from now on. The sloppiness in your life is evident from the way you carry yourself." I had to welcome my husband in a uniform and serve meals as soon as he arrived home. Sitting in chairs wasn't allowed. What I was doing surpassed mere nitpicking by a long shot. I thought about running away, but I had no parents, and my only sibling, Austin, was married and living abroad. I didn't have anyone I could easily turn to for help. I cried almost every night, my spirit breaking bit by bit. By the time we finished training and started living only with Jason, I had lost a lot of weight and was both mentally and physically exhausted.
Please, Jason, I'm not feeling well. Could you let me see a doctor?
A week after we started living together, plagued by nausea and headaches, I brought up my health concerns to Jason. We hadn't been intimate since our wedding, so there was no chance of pregnancy. Given that, maybe I really am sick. The intense headache makes it hard to even sit up, and my body feels faint like I'm anemic, refusing to cooperate. I can tell my body is screaming for help. It's clear even to me that it's severe. It's not something I could bear or will away. With a pale face, I told Jason about it. He responded with an irritated tone, dismissing my plea.
What do you mean you feel bad? Be specific. You always leave out the important parts. Maybe it's because you've always been pampered. You expect people to just get you. Maybe that's why you can't even take care of yourself. I'm tired, don't waste my precious time with your vague words. Speak up and be clear, and stop annoying me.
My ears hurt more hearing his sarcastic complaints while feeling so ill, making my headache even worse. I regretted getting married in this maddening situation. He never showed any signs like this when we were dating, but as soon as we got married, he changed. Until then, he was kind, always gentlemanly, and charming, a popular guy at work. Marilyn's really clumsy, can't take my eyes off her. I worked at the same company as him. I worked hard, and when I secured a job at this major company, Austin even cried tears of joy. Back then, both my parents were alive, and when I got the job, Austin even came back to the States. We spent quality time together, just family.
If you ever face any challenges, reach out anytime. Even if I'm far away, I'm still your big brother.
Austin truly cherished me. There were parts of Jason that reminded me of Austin's kindness. He was understanding of my clumsy nature, intelligent, and the go-to guy for everyone. He was like an older brother figure I looked up to. I fell for his warm nature.
I have a headache, feel nauseous, and I'm dizzy. I'm gonna go to the doctor and get some medicine. Please, can you give me the money for the consultation?
The kindness I felt from him in the past is nowhere to be found now. There's not a trace left. Now, he's like a completely different person. He's so harsh, it's almost demonic. He doesn't see me as a human being. He looks at me with disdain, as if he's looking at trash. I've come to fear him.
It's all just you being spoiled.
I wasn't expecting him to give me the money easily, but I was at a loss for words at his unexpected response.
You have it easy as a homemaker, and yet you always seem to be whining. What in your life could be causing dizziness, nausea, or headaches? Are all these just excuses to avoid housework? I'm not saying this out of any ill intention. You don't even work outside, and you complain about headaches? Give me a break. Just take some over-the-counter meds and get over it. I won't tolerate any unnecessary spending.
The family's finances were entirely covered by Jason's salary. He couldn't manage anything around the house and had expressed before marriage that he wanted me to handle all the housework. He was like, "Don't worry about money. Whether we have 3 kids or 4, I'm gonna work hard and provide. I want you to do the things I can't." Back then, even being as unreliable as I felt, I was happy that I could be of use to him. I had enjoyed working and being his support. Leaving my job wasn't a tough decision. I believed we would have a happy life together, but this is what it has come to. I've become trapped in my life, much like a bird in a cage. I can't take it anymore, someone, please help. He doesn't even consider my health issues. After Jason reached his breaking point and stormed out of the living room, I collapsed on the spot and couldn't stop crying. I don't even have the energy to fight back against the overwhelming sadness. I want to disappear. I'd rather end my life than continue living like this. Mentally and physically exhausted, I left the house without telling Jason. After walking for a while, I found myself near the place where my childhood home used to be. Having run out of the house barefoot, my feet were now battered and bruised. I don't even have the energy to walk anymore. It was the beginning of a chilly season, and the cold wind cut through my light clothes, making me shiver. I wonder what would happen if I just laid down here and let the cold take me. Could I find peace in the afterlife? With those thoughts in mind, I slumped down in front of my now abandoned childhood home, collapsing onto the ground. I can't think anymore. I don't want to think. I just want to disappear. That's what was on my mind at the time. In a hazy state of consciousness, I heard someone calling out to me.
Hey, hang in there! Open your eyes!
I didn't recognize the voice. But, strangely, it felt familiar. As I tried to focus, my consciousness faded away. When I came to, I was staring up at the ceiling of an unfamiliar house. Slowly opening my eyes, I noticed the warmth of the room and the scent of freshly baked bread nearby. Struggling to sit up and assess my situation, I realized someone was there with me. Before I knew it, there stood a man, slightly older than me, evoking a sense of nostalgia. What? Growing wary of this stranger, he burst into hearty laughter upon seeing my scared face. What's the matter? Don't you remember me? Well, can't blame you. It's been over 20 years. Listening to his joyful voice and words, a memory flashed back. Is that you, Bob?
You got it. It's been ages, Marilyn. I happened to pass by your childhood home and found you collapsed. What on earth were you doing there?
Bob Collins used to play with Austin and me until middle school. He was a childhood friend of mine and remained a close friend of Austin. He moved away in high school, but apparently, he and Austin have been keeping in touch all these years. He's now running a transportation company and is a father of 2.
I had no idea you were around here, Bob. I was visiting my grandma's grave and decided to bring the family for a trip. But more importantly, what happened? You were so cold, I rushed you to my home.
Bob's wife, a nurse, had checked my condition and determined that I just needed some rest. From there, Bob gently asked about my situation. His wife sat next to me, shedding tears listening to a complete stranger's tale, and held me close.
We can't let this stand. If he's treating you so poorly, you should just divorce him. I wish I could just run away from that house. But I have no family or friends to turn to.
Bob's wife's words mirrored my own thoughts. I could tell she understood my situation. Tearfully, I continued to share my story, and she was at a loss for words.
If you had a place to live and a job, that would solve it, right?
While we were talking, Bob, who had been listening intently, suddenly spoke, looking for confirmation. I was puzzled by his question and looked at him, not quite grasping his intention. Then, he made a phone call. After finishing, he turned to me with a bright smile.
Marilyn, we're gonna help you out. Leave that place. I'll back you up.
Not understanding what I was told, I was bewildered. Bob gave me a reassuring smile, saying, "Leave it to me." For a while, I ended up staying at Bob's house until I felt better. Bob's wife made a call to Jason on my behalf. When confronted with someone else, he didn't utter a word, and he didn't try to force me to come back. Being away from Jason, perhaps mentally I felt a bit more stable, and my health improved. I could tell that Bob's wife genuinely cared about me. Thankful for her words and concern, I decided to lean on them a bit. Resting was my top priority. After about a week, Bob suggested that I should go back home. Encouraged by his strong words, I decided to go home. Bob accompanied me to the doorstep, where Jason greeted us with a flustered look. He wasn't his usual stern self, he seemed more concerned about my health. But there was something about his demeanor that scared me. Then, as if to keep me away from Bob, he pulled me into a tight embrace, letting out a deep sigh.
Marilyn. It's my fault. I didn't understand your pain, and I made you suffer. I'm truly sorry. Thank you for coming back.
His voice choked up. Although I was surprised, as I tried to compose myself, I caught Bob's gaze from behind, watching over me silently. With a silent lip movement, Bob mouthed like, "Stay strong." When Jason let go of me, he ruffled his hair in frustration and sighed deeply.
You know what this means, right?
His words, said with an air of annoyance, made my body freeze in terror. His tone was now cold, as if he had become a different person, suggesting that I had just brought trouble. Confused and unsure about entering the house, Jason forcefully pulled me inside and then shoved my hand away.
Relying on some guy I don't even know. Didn't think you were that kind of girl, he said.
Tears welled up in my eyes. Even though I'd promised myself I'd stay strong coming back here, his harsh words and gaze made me tremble. I'm scared. I want to leave. It's too much. Feeling like this, my vision started to blur, and I began to feel dizzy. As I seemed to be collapsing against him, he pushed me away in disgust, expressing his annoyance with a huff.
Cut out the act. I don't even want to touch a dirty woman like you.
Thrown off balance by his push, I crashed into the wall and collapsed in the hallway. Ignoring my state, Jason turned on the TV, sprawled on the couch, and barked an order at me, as if to make his displeasure clear.
Get dinner ready, now. Because of you, I haven't had a decent meal in a week. The least you can do is housework. So get on it and do the laundry too.
Looking around, I noticed piles of laundry overflowing everywhere. Dishes and trash were left all around. The house was a complete mess. I can't take it anymore. I can't go on with this man any longer. I want a divorce. It was at that moment I had such thoughts. Someone approached him from behind and called out to him.
Is that all you wanted to say?
The familiar voice startled me. As Jason slowly turned around, the color drained from his face.
Austin? What are you doing here?
It was Austin standing there. Why was Austin, who was supposed to be overseas, here? Jason was showing signs of panic. Jason trembled in fear of Austin's intimidating presence. Austin, having worked in construction overseas, had grown bigger and looked even more formidable than when he left the States. When Austin suddenly approached him, it was no surprise that a frail man like Jason would be scared. Moreover, Austin despises people who act inhumanely. To Austin, Jason's behavior was nothing short of reprehensible. It was no surprise to see anger on Austin's face.
No, this is just guiding my wife, teaching her.
Oh? So pushing a sick woman is teaching? That's news to me. Jason desperately tried to make an implausible excuse. At Jason's words, oddly enough, Bob, who was supposed to have left earlier, peeked into the living room. With a refreshing smile, he addressed Jason.
Why are you here? How'd you get in?
Well, the door wasn't locked. Even if you have a lock, it won't work if the door isn't shut properly. With that, he pulled out a thin handkerchief. The handkerchief was dirty as if it had been wedged somewhere.
Oh! When you hugged me, I dropped something on the floor to prevent the door from locking, so that the others could get into the house later.
I'm looking a bit wobbly, was supported by Bob's wife and managed to stand up. Jason's expression, alternating between looking at me and the faces of Austin and the others, was tinted with panic and fear. After hearing the reveal of how Bob and the others got in, Jason realized this had been planned from the beginning. He had always dumped all security concerns on me, so it was obvious he wouldn't check the locks. Once the door closes, it locks automatically. With that in mind, it was easy to imagine him not bothering with the front door.
I've heard everything from Marilyn. Seems like you've gotten real close with my sister while I was overseas. That's because I've recorded all of our interactions. Marilyn has detailed records in her diary, and even your emails and calls have been recorded and saved. All of this has been handed over to the lawyer. Including the harm you've done to Marilyn, expect to be paying for damages. From now on, deal with the lawyer about the divorce. Don't you dare approach our family again.
Everyone glared at Jason, as if to protect a trembling me, making it clear that not a single person was on Jason's side. To ensure I wouldn't be swayed by Jason's sweet words, Austin spoke on my behalf. At the mention of the word divorce, Jason became frantic and began clinging to me.
Wait, please reconsider the divorce. I can't live without Marilyn.
Jason tried desperately to play the pitiful card. He probably did need me in many ways, but his words no longer reached me. I knew the real meaning behind his words, to use me, to have an easy life, to take out his daily frustrations on me. I wouldn't fall for his sweet words anymore. Bob and Austin stepped in to protect me from Jason's desperate attempts. From behind the two of them, For the first time since our marriage, I coldly said to Jason.
There wasn't a single moment of happiness in our married life. All I thought about was how to escape. Who'd want to stay in such a house? I want nothing to do with you. Stay away from me.
Perhaps because I had never raised my voice before, Jason stopped resisting out of shock. Devastated by the unbelievable scene before him, he seemed to lose all strength and collapsed on the spot. Finally, I was free from Jason's clutches. Once things calmed down, I headed to the hospital accompanied by Bob's wife. I was diagnosed with depression. To get some rest, I stayed at Bob's house for a while. Based on Bob's suggestion, I decided to recuperate there before starting my new life.
We're here for you. Everything's gonna be alright. If that man tries to come around, I'll chase him away. Just leave it to me.
Austin and I were truly grateful for the reassuring words and the warmth of the two kind souls. The reason Austin had returned to the States was due to a call from Bob. It turned out that Austin was the one Bob had been on the phone with, and Bob had explained my situation, urging him to come back right away.
Why didn't you rely on me?
Of course, Austin, who had come back, scolded me, but he knew I wasn't good at leaning on others. Austin regretted not coming here sooner to check on me and hugged me multiple times. Thanks to Bob arranging for a lawyer and a place to live, this situation was resolved smoothly.
From now on, live with us over there. It might be tough to adapt at the beginning, but my wife and our friends will support you fully. Don't worry.
Saying that, he offered me a job at his company, and everyone there welcomed me with open arms. As for Jason, he and his mother were sued by us for emotional abuse and are now buried in debt. Before I left the States, I met with my former colleagues and explained the circumstances leading to the divorce, resulting in Jason losing his standing at the company. Having lost his credibility, he felt uncomfortable at the company and resigned soon after. Now, he's living off his parents and doing odd jobs here and there. Although I received a letter of apology from him, saying he'd learned his lesson from this ordeal, I, of course, didn't believe a word and made sure to get compensation from him. And so, my long and tumultuous journey came to an end, and now I'm enjoying a peaceful life overseas, surrounded by kind-hearted people.